Hello everyone, and welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound Radio Show, your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. I'm Robert Winfrey, I'm your host for this affair, however much value you want to give to it. Should be a relatively quick show tonight. We will primarily be reviewing UFC on Fox 31. The UFC's deal with Fox is coming to a close. This was their last Fox card. The last set of fights here on the Fox network of some variety will be the prelims for 232 in a couple of weeks. And that'll be it. No more UFC on Fox. It's an odd thing. They will be moving to ESPN in January. Primarily ESPN Plus is where most of the stuff's going to take. Preliminary fights will air on that. They have more cards on ESPN Plus than they do on ESPN. So we'll have that to look forward to going forward, but this was the end of, a 7-year stint in MMA history that, for both, had positive and negative effects, and, for better or for worse, definitely one of the watershed moments in the UFC's history thus far. So we'll go over the event, we'll go over a few of our memories, our likes and our dislikes from the Fox deal, where it succeeded, where it fell a little bit short, nothing too in-depth or whatnot, but this is the closing of a chapter, and it deserves a little bit of recognition, so we'll go into that. And then, again, just major news items from the last week, including an event being canceled because the UFC doesn't want to headline an event without a title anymore, it seems, and they couldn't find something for UFC 233, so Anaheim gets the shaft for a second time. But we'll get to that. Sorry about that.
Southern California, it's like cursed now for big MMA. Well, I kind of live here, so.
I know. And that's not about the people. It's a little about the people.
I don't know. Well.
I mean, look, you
I don't know. When you say that, it kind of annoys me anyway. I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't, but it does. I don't know. Even though I'm not originally from here, but whatever.
I mean, you live in the worst managed state in the union.
I feel like we still deserve good MMA.
Yeah. I mean...
All right, now you're just being nasty.
What? Come on, my home state, the state I live in, has had one event from the UFC ever.
Okay.
And it was main evented by Yair Rodriguez and Alex Caceres. Come on.
I would take that at this point.
That's kind of sad, man. Like, even we knew that was a small market card. Like, we know we were getting kind of dumped on.
Okay, small market, but it's something. I would take it.
Have they seriously not been to that just Southern California area in a while?
I think they have.
Hang on, I need to look.
I'd have to now.
Vegas, Denver, New York, Vegas, Dallas, Lincoln. They were there for Dillashaw Garbrandt too. Was in
Anaheim
LA.
Is Orange County, not LA County, but it's still sort of Southern Cal.
They're very close. Well, not very close, but they're close together.
Yeah, it's like dual.
So August, you guys had one in August at the Staples Center.
That was the first one in the Staples Center in a while now. But look, Southern California is a huge market,
Yes, it is.
For all intents and purposes, they should be here really 3 events a year, I mean, we're talking about a state or a market that, look how much they've done New York since New York became open to the sport, right? Yeah. I feel like we should be more plentiful here.
Okay, hang on. Let's just start with 8. Let's go through 18 very briefly.
Okay.
St. Louis, Boston, Charlotte, Belém, Perth, Austin, Orlando, Vegas, London, Brooklyn, Glendale, Atlantic City, Rio, Santiago, Chile, Liverpool, so England again, Utica, Chicago, Cologne, Singapore, Vegas, Boise. Freaking Boise, man. Hamburg, Calgary.
What you got against Boise?
You ever been to Boise?
No, but I mean,
I've been to Boise.
I'm not gonna condemn the place just because I've never been there.
I have been to Boise.
Okay.
Several times, in fact.
Okay. I mean, the people there might be good people who still deserve quality.
A lot of them are. Yeah, no, look, there's a lot of good. I can trash a general location without trashing the people.
Okay. Jeffrey deserves good MMA and to watch good MMA live.
Hang on. So,
You
Hamburg,
should,
Calgary,
you
LA,
should feel
Lincoln,
sorry
Dallas,
for me
Moscow,
instead of.
Sao Paulo, Vegas again, Moncton. Frickin' Moncton.
All right. Well,
Moncton.
I'm Jeffrey Harris, everyone, and this is the Ground and Pound Radio Show. And we're here to review and recap
New York, Denver, Buenos Aires,
UFC
Beijing.
on Fox
Yeah,
31.
they've only been to California once this year. That's a little surprising. I mean, in fairness, they've only been to New York twice.
Like, I went to the first UFC on Fox card. That was in Anaheim. And then I think they didn't do another event in Southern Cal until Shogun versus Brandon Vera. It was like a year later. I went to that one. That was at Staples. It just seems like it takes a while.
Yeah, and for as many people as live in that area, they really don't. Yeah, like, because I mean, again, they've been there once in all of 2018. And,
like, I think Bellator hits Southern California more, basically.
Well, Bellator can't really afford to go many places.
Well, but they go here way more. All right, so UFC on Fox.
Yeah, UFC on Fox 31.
This was the very last UFC on Fox card for UFC's 7-year. Wow, hard to believe it's been 7 years.
Man,
7 years.
I feel old all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I remember when this was announced, you know?
I mean, it didn't seem long ago that this was announced. So the deal,
7 years and 5 UFC on FS1 events later, because they take forever.
Basically, the deal started in late 2011 with the first UFC on Fox card, and then they kind of moved everything in 2012 after Bisping versus Mayhem on The Ultimate Fighter. So, you know, they had a pretty good run on Spike TV, moved to Fox, and now they're moving to ESPN and ESPN Plus. We'll see. I'm not against it, but we'll see how it does.
I mean, they got paid for it, if nothing else, in theory. So good for them for that.
I mean, yeah.
All right, in your main event, this was a rematch of a fight from 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, now I have to look that up specifically.
Man, I did not do well on this main card.
I did all right, I think. Anyway,
we both picked Kevin Lee for the main event.
Okay, no, I only got one right on the main card, but I knew I was going to get at least one of those. I knew I was getting the Oliveira Miller fight wrong.
But you know what? It wasn't a super blowout for the main event. So I mean,
no.
To me, there's always, I think there's always a margin of error when we make these picks.
Oh yeah. Anyway, Iaquinta scores a pretty significant upset. He was a plus 235 or so underdog. Defeats Kevin Lee via unanimous decision, 48-47, 48-47, and 49-46. I take issue with 49-46 for either man. I don't think that's accurate. For me, the entire scoring of this fight comes down to the first round, because rounds 2 and 3 were pretty clearly for Kevin Lee. Rounds 4 and 5 were pretty clearly for Iaquinta, which means, we're left with one round that was a close round.
But one judge gave the round 4-1 to Iaquinta.
Yeah, again, look, I don't think you can give Iaquinta rounds 2 or 3. Period. Just straight up.
I expected a split decision, but that's not what happened. Because even the announcers were saying that the first round was the swing round, but one judge gave Iaquinta a whole lot. So it wasn't. I guess that's a little controversial, but basically it wasn't even that close.
Anytime it comes down to one round, if all three judges see that round the same way, even if I disagree, if it's close, I'm not going to scream about 3-2 for Iaquinta. I was 3-2 for Kevin Lee. But
I can see that argument. But Lee's the problem is that one, Lee was not able to secure that choke, and he didn't do a lot of damage on the ground either.
No, he really. I was surprised at how.
But maybe that's good though. Maybe that's good though, because sometimes we don't like it when judges tend to overscore takedowns and just being on top.
Well, he only scored the two. He only scored, I think, three takedowns all fight.
Takedown, but that's still three more than Iaquinta scored.
Yeah, and those were the takedowns as well as the positional dominance he secured in rounds 2 and 3 are what I thought gave him those rounds. I don't think you can give someone a round if they have their back taken for a significant portion of time in a round.
I agree, and I
think
that's
what happened. And I think it was
round 3, right? Or round 2 and 3, I think.
It happened in both rounds, but one round Iaquinta had a much better round on the feet that kind of muddied the waters until he got his back for that period of time.
Right.
If all Kevin Lee had done was have top position and say half
But
guard,
then I think in one round he had his back, and then Iaquinta was even able to get out of it and get back to his feet for with a minute and 30 left, right?
The second round, he escaped the back mount with time left, but didn't do much after that.
Right.
The third round, he had a good first half of the round, then got taken down and had his back taken for the last 2 minutes, give or take, I seem to recall.
I mean, Iaquinta finished the fight strong.
Oh, yeah. He finished much stronger.
Lee took his foot off the gas. Iaquinta clearly had the better striking throughout the whole fight. Lee clearly started to slow down. His wrestling and his grappling were on point for the most part, despite the fact that he couldn't finish any of the submission attempts. His wrestling was there, and it was good. It just wasn't good enough to earn him a victory. And I think here's I think another reason why people were overlooking Iaquinta. I mean, he had a tough fight with Khabib. He lost to Khabib. But Robert, that was his only fight in a year. And before that, his last fight was last year with Diego Sanchez in April. That was his first fight in 2 years. So, I mean, with Iaquinta, it's been a lot of inactivity. And, Kevin Lee did lose to him before, but Kevin Lee has been the more active and I guess impressive fighter.
Generally speaking, yes.
I mean, yeah, he lost. Everyone loses to Tony Ferguson.
Pretty much.
He beat up Edson Barboza, who won in impressive fashion last night. He submitted. I guess it was controversial, but he submitted Michael Chiesa, a guy who has a submission win over Iaquinta. That was a while ago, but he beat that guy. He beat Trinaldo when Trinaldo was on a really good winning streak. So Lee's been, I think that even though maybe people were overlooking Iaquinta, I think there was decent reasoning why he was the betting underdog last night. To me, it wasn't offensive for him to be the underdog. Maybe it should have been a little closer. But I think Iaquinta, he just needs to be more active and more. He needs to be fighting more against top level guys. Look, what really annoyed me is when he got really whiny about the Diego Sanchez. Dude, you knocked out Diego Sanchez, okay? Diego Sanchez in 2017 is not that's not an elite victory. I think you would agree, right, Robert?
I mean, I barely consider it a victory. If you sign to fight Diego Sanchez in 2016 or later, there's no winning. You either beat the guy and you should beat him and it's sad that you beat up old man Sanchez, or you lose and you're an embarrassment who shouldn't be in the UFC.
Right, and then there was all this, that was a fight he should have won. He knocked him out, and he's getting upset he didn't get a bonus when he played hooky on the Fighter Summit. Look, you can't complain when you play hooky for work and then work finds out about it and holds it against and punishes you for it, okay? That's on you, man. If you're going to play hooky from work, don't post you're going to beach on Instagram. To me, it's just common sense. That being said, Iaquinta, it looks like he's turned a corner. According to Brett Okamoto, he's in a good place now with the organization. So it seems like now he's ready to fight and make a run of it. And I think that's good because if he continues fighting and looking like he did last night, he can be a force in this division again, like he was a few years ago, I would say. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't know. I'm really torn on him because Iaquinta is...
He just beat the number 4 ranked lightweight.
Sure.
So
hang on.
This puts him in the top 5.
I'm not sure he actually gets into the top 5 off of this.
Yes, I mean he was 8. He was 8 going into this. He beat number 4.
Stupid. He shouldn't have been 8 going into this.
Maybe he shouldn't have been, but he
he should be top 10 now. Like, I feel like this victory is what should get him to number 8.
Now maybe there are guys who have been surging through the ranks you think should go above him. I understand, but this win is still going to put him in the top 5, whether you like it or not.
I know. I don't disagree with your prognostication. I disagree with whether or not it should. I mean, here's my thing with Iaquinta.
Because Lee has to move down because of this. Maybe you don't want to put Lee. Maybe you don't want to put Lee below Edson Barboza. Then Edson Barboza won last night. See, this is the tough thing about MMA rankings, you know?
Well, especially when you don't want to effectively reward immediacy. Because I mean, look, Barboza was on a 2-fight losing streak going into last night and was still a top 10 guy.
And Iaquinta, his only fight in a year was a loss to Khabib where he didn't even make weight. Officially,
he made weight. He made weight for the fight he had originally signed for.
Yeah, but he didn't make championship weight.
Well, and again, he didn't sign to fight the champion until after.
Right, but it was still that was the fight he fought. So,
I mean, the guy can make 155. He's proved that in the past. It's just in that instance, it was 155.2 for the Felder fight, and then craziness happened.
Again, this is to me. This is the thing about rankings. It's like, do you penalize a guy for not making weight? I mean, Kevin Lee had that for his last fight.
I mean, again, it's weird. Like the other hard thing is someone like Barboza, who has a loss to Lee, was on a 2-fight losing streak, but was still very highly ranked going into last night. Again, despite clear losses in his previous 2, and now you're stuck in a weird position where he's not actually going to climb all that much. And, the guy who smashed him thoroughly just 1 fight ago is now going to wind up below him because we don't have a real understanding of rankings in this sport or what we're trying to accomplish with them.
There's not a good criteria for rankings. Did Iaquinta impress you at all last night?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, the thing for me about Iaquinta going into this
his
fight,
endurance impressed me.
It was about what I expected. I mean, the guy on 1 day's notice went from a 3-round fight to a 5-round fight and didn't get tired getting shellacked by Khabib. Like, the dude's got cardio. Mostly it was his left hand in this fight that impressed me because for several fights, if you look at the Khabib fight, even some of the other fights before that, the Masvidal fight, the Sanchez fight, for whatever credence you want to give, beating up Diego Sanchez in 2016, he's always had a strong right hand, although I think his power is oversold. The dude's got power, don't get me wrong, but it's sold as though, for the love of all that's holy, don't get touched by this guy. No, you can get hit by him. I mean, Lee got hit a few times. He caught Khabib, not clean, but once or twice. He hit Masvidal a fair amount, and Masvidal just didn't care. The man has power, but I feel it's oversold.
Let's see. He has 7 knockout wins. Before the loss to Khabib, during his 5-fight winning streak,
it was
4. It was 4 out of 5 knockouts.
Yeah, 4 out of 5. He went the distance with Masvidal.
Granted, it was...
Wait. Wasn't one of those like Pearson and Rodrigo Dam and someone else who just really sucks?
Joe Lozon and Diego Sanchez.
At that point.
So basically, he doesn't have any finishes over top 10 opponents, and he still doesn't.
I mean, and he did. I mean, he didn't even finish Ryan Couture back in 2013. Like, again, I'm not knocking the guy because he's an accurate
back then,
puncher.
he was like 6-2. He only had 9 fights. He was still young in his career. Really.
Yeah, but still, like Ryan Couture, you should finish that guy.
And he got submitted in the Ultimate Fighter finale by Mike Chiesa, where he was probably the favorite to win that fight at the time.
Which was stupid because
I picked Chiesa for that fight.
Yeah, I seem to recall doing the same because it's. If you guys want to know about tough finales, a sense that's apparently not going to stop being a thing, whoever the big devastating striker is from the season, if they make it to the finals against the grindy wrestler, pick the wrestler. Because they will win 9 times. I mean, the same thing with like Uriah Hall and Kelvin Gastelum.
Philippe Novaire, the lightweight Anderson Silva. Remember that?
Yeah, there's that. I mean, do you remember? Because I remember this rather vividly. For again, Uriah Hall and Kelvin Gastelum make it to the finals of their season of Tough, and we all on the round table picked Kelvin Gastelum, and we got ripped for that.
Well, because I think I saw.
I mean, it was. We just got to. I mean,
accused
of why are you picking this guy?
It wasn't just because of the wrestling with Gastelum. He just seemed to be a more well-rounded opponent, I think.
Yeah, and again, anytime that there's this devastating striker that comes through the ranks, watch him get to the finals and watch him get beat by a more well-rounded fighter who makes them fight badly.
But, I mean, look, that being said, Uriah Hall was scary on that show.
Sure.
He was very...
I mean, look, half of the cast of any season of Tough is there to be a tomato can.
Here's the other thing. Sometimes those matches on Tough are weird. And there's clearly a lot of guys on the show in recent years clearly did not belong in the UFC at all, and were really just there to make the guys they want to promote look good, right?
Yeah,
on some level. And then every once in a while you'll have like a guy sometimes guys on the show will overperform, like Amir Sadallah, who didn't amount to much in the UFC. But whatever. I expected Mike Chiesa to win on that show because his grappling and submission game was very underrated.
Anyway, hang on, because you asked about Iaquinta here. Again, what surprised me was how much he had improved his left hand, because he's been a right-hand fighter essentially his entire career, and his left actually did stuff in this fight. Other than that, I mean, Iaquinta's kind of a known quantity. He's got some power. He's got a good right. He's got surprisingly good footwork because he does a lot of really good cage cutting that most people overlook.
He's got a bit of a chin.
He's got a good chin. He's hard to get down. He's hard to keep
down. He's never been knocked out. He's a decent wrestler, I think.
He's a pretty good wrestler. He's hard to get down. He's hard to keep down. And that's just a recipe that becomes difficult for a lot of guys to deal with. I mean,
and here's another thing. His coaches are very good coaches.
Yeah, I mean, he's out of Serra Longo, and those guys have a lot of success.
Ray Longo and Matt Serra I feel like they're really underrated as coaches and cornermen in this business.
Yeah, they know their fighters, and they're very intelligent guys.
Matt Serra's a former champion, and that's not something you can really just scoff at, Robert. No. And I
liked Matt Serra during both of his UFC runs.
And he's probably one of the better BJJ grapplers on the planet. You would agree, right?
No.
Okay.
Not now.
Well, he knows his way around the mat.
Yes, he's a great coach. He's very knowledgeable. And for a long time, I mean, there's a reason George St. Pierre said that Matt Serra had the best jiu-jitsu of anyone he fought, and he fought BJ Penn twice. Serra's a phenomenal grappler.
All right.
He's not actively competing right now, and like the best grapplers in the world right now are. It's still probably low in Boucher.
But I'll tell you. I talked to Matt Serra after Chiesa Iaquinta, and he was still really high high on Al Iaquinta. It was sort of like we were talking in the lobby after the fight, and I'm like, I'm sorry about Al. I'm sure he'll do well. And he's like, I'm not worried. I love Al. I think he's going to be a world champion someday. Now, do I think Al Iaquinta is going to be a world champion? No, but I kind of see him staying around, hovering at this level.
Yeah, I mean, again, what he does, the style that he presents and the way he presents it just offers some problems that make him a tough fight for basically anyone. Not an unbeatable option. I mean, again, Khabib destroyed him for 5 rounds, including 2 10-8s. I mean, Tony Ferguson would probably smoke him.
I agree. I was about to say that. That's the thing. If he fought Tony, like he was calling out Tony Ferguson with the media, and like honestly, if he were to fight Ferguson, I would pick Ferguson every day of the week for that fight.
I pick Ferguson over everyone in that division, not named Khabib, and I
pick him over Khabib, and you know that.
No, I know you do. And again, let me say it like again.
Yeah.
You tell me Tony Ferguson against anyone at lightweight except Khabib, I pick Tony right now. If we're gearing up for Khabib and Tony again, I have new fights to study from both guys that I have to look over.
Poirier versus Poirier might be a good fight. And I mean, look, as much as I want to see Poirier fight for a title as well, and I think they should strip Khabib and book Tony versus Poirier for the title. Khabib and Conor have really hurt this division irreparably, and it's unfortunate.
At this point, I'm blaming Nevada rather than them.
I blame everybody.
Yeah, I mean, look, they shouldn't have done what they did.
Everyone wants to find a scapegoat. To me, there's no single scapegoat.
No, in this circumstance, there really isn't. You had Conor doing stupid stuff. You had Khabib doing stupid stuff, and now you have Nevada taking a metric eternity
and the UFC. Let's not
the UFC for creating a fighter culture that rewards this kind of crap.
Right.
No one's clean here. Not a single person.
Right. Again, if I had the power, I would strip Khabib of the title. I would book Tony Ferguson versus Poirier for the belt. Let's see. Has Iaquinta ever fought Barboza?
No. There's a lot of guys Iaquinta hasn't fought because of that hiatus he took.
Look, and there's also the Max Holloway factor. I'm not sure I want to see Max Holloway move up just yet, though.
Look, you know what I want? Here's what I want.
Okay.
I want Max Holloway to move up to lightweight and fight Charles Oliveira, so Charles Oliveira will shut the hell up.
You can't put Max Holloway in a fight like that, moving up for his first time.
Look, how about this? Let's pay Charles Oliveira half of his fight purse to go have a 5-round sparring session with Max Holloway, so Max can just abuse him again, and he will shut up about going to featherweight.
I'd be fine with that.
Seriously, man. No. Get over it.
Maybe Dan Hooker versus Kevin Lee could work. I don't know if Dan Hooker would like that fight.
I don't know. Because Lee's fought a lot of people.
I'm sure Mike Chiesa would want the rematch, but...
Chiesa's at welterweight now.
Oh, maybe Pettis versus Lee. That'd be a good one.
I'd be down for Pettis and Lee. They're both coming off of losses. You could do Lee against... 10. You know what you could do? You could do Lee against the winner of, like, Cowboy and Hernandez. Because Cerrone's coming back to lightweight.
That would be a fun fight. Heck, Cowboy versus Lee would be a fun fight.
Oh yeah, again, if Cerrone beats Alex Hernandez, Cerrone and Lee makes a lot of sense.
Oh, that's right. Alex Hernandez he's another guy coming up. We also have to think about does Justin Gaethje have a fight lined up? He's another that's another factor we have. I don't think
he has. There's been some talk. I don't remember if they signed anything for him yet.
Him versus, you know what? I think I might like him versus Iaquinta. Because look,
Gaethje called him out on Twitter. I mean, Gaethje calls out everyone on Twitter.
Look. Iaquinta won one fight here. Okay, I'm not saying it's we're not. He's not in a position to be asking for title eliminators or title rematches or a rematch with Khabib. Okay, he's not in that kind of position because you got thrashed by Khabib, and you beat a top 5 opponent. It's time for you to put on the gloves and fight and prove you can beat these top guys. Beat a guy like Justin Gaethje, and then we'll see if he can be put in like one of those title eliminator type fights.
Yeah, I'd be down for Iaquinta and Gaethje.
That's the fight that's kind of where I want them to go next.
I wonder the degree to which the passing of Robert Follis has really kind of screwed up Kevin Lee. Because
he did okay against Barboza, but he's a good match.
Barboza. He also did get wheel kicked really badly, and he also has a style really designed around beating Barboza just generally.
It's kind of too early. It's kind of too early to say that.
It is, but again, that's why I'm just wondering. I'm not calling it. This isn't like Mark Hominick after Sean Tompkins passed. Like, is that very clearly?
But
I just bring it up because I bring it up specifically because
who is Sean Tompkins' other Sam Stout? Like Sam Stout was good, but he was always sort of just a mid upper level lightweight,
Yeah.
I think Stout's biggest win in the UFC was like Joe Lozon or something, right?
Probably.
So I just don't I don't think Tompkins really just had an irreparable effect on the careers of Hominick or Stout, honestly.
Well, I mean Hominick specifically, not so much Stout. Stout did okay after.
I don't know. I wouldn't credit solely to what happened to Tompkins.
Not entirely, but I think it clearly played a part. And I bring it up just because, Kevin Lee has a 77-inch reach.
Right.
That is insane.
But he also cuts a lot of weight.
Sure, but there are heavyweights who don't have 77 inches of reach. Like, the man has long-ass arms, and he can't seem to use them properly.
But he got knocked out 3 years ago by Leonardo Santos.
Yeah, and he learned from that, and he got better, and it just, I don't know,
look, this was a competitive fight for him. This was not a blowout loss. Had he done a few things differently, he might have been able to win this fight, Robert,
Yeah, had he actually kept his jab going properly, because Al's there to be jabbed. Khabib's jab isn't exactly world class, and he just destroyed Iaquinta's face with it.
I don't. So I'm going to say no for right now, but I don't know. We'll see.
Again, it's just a thought because, again, just something to think about, I suppose. He might bounce back from this, and he's still very talented, but Lee really needs to figure out how to get his distance management and distance gauging under control, because he had like 6 inches of reach on Al, 6 or 7, and he never maintained distance properly outside of the first 2 rounds. It's just this massive gap in his game, and relative to his physical gifts, it should be addressed by this point. But anyway, again, it was a pretty solid main event. Not great, but we get a little bit of chaos in the division because the expected order was upended, and that's always fun. Lightweight had a pretty good night all around last night. In the co-main event, this hurt me to watch, man. I'm a sick person because I can just watch this and just watch it. I don't get queasy, but Edson Barboza defeats Dan Hooker via knockout, and a pretty legit knockout with a body punch in the 3rd round. Man alive.
Dan Hooker, too tough for his own good.
Definitely.
Just like Brian Ortega. Cornermen, start taking care of your fighters, man. Seriously.
Hang on. Credit to the corner of Ortega in that Ortega-Holloway fight. It was Henner Gracie that called the doctor over and said, tell him he can't fight.
Okay. So that was partly Henner Gracie as well.
That was a lot. Yeah, that was a lot Ortega's corner, looking at his eye and looking at the fight and going, okay, we're not winning. We need to stop this. Got the doctor over and said, Doc, look at this. Tell him he can't fight because he can't. This one, Hooker, I don't know how Hooker was as cogent as he was between rounds 2 and 3. But the doctor went over and talked to him and said, okay, what year is it? No, it's 2019. Where are you? I'm in Milwaukee, which is like hell. Sorry, I'm just burning every city. No, I'm in Milwaukee. I mean, he was there cognitively. He knew where he was. He knew what he was doing. He knew he wanted to keep fighting. I mean, it's one thing to look at the guy in the state he was in and give him a chance start the third round. A minute into that round, if your fighter hasn't given you an indication that a turnaround is possible, you need to be up there throwing in the towel. I mean,
didn't they ask Frank Mir some cognitive questions against Junior and he didn't get him right?
Yeah, they asked him where he was. He said he was at the Pearl at the Palms. Well, he was sitting under the banner for the MGM Grand.
Yeah. Talk about bad optics. You know,
definitely.
And Frank Mir didn't Frank Mir just get like trounced the other night?
He suffered a broken I forget the bone.
He got beat up. An orbital bone?
I mean, he had a fight and he lost.
Yeah.
The reason he
submitted
out.
Pettis.
Oh, the ref missed his. Oh, I remember this actually. I looked it up because I saw the finish and was like, "Wait, what happened?" The ref missed his mouthpiece being knocked out for almost an entire round, and he suffered an injury to. It's not the orbital bone. I think it's the one right under it. I forget what it's called. But when you don't have a gum shield in that area, like where your teeth connect to your skull, and you wear those for a reason, guys. It's not just to protect your teeth as they are. There's structures that need to be reinforced as well. And some bone in his face broke, and that's what led to that. Terrible job by the ref. But anyway, in this fight, Dan Hooker's I don't know how he got hit in the body as many times as he did and just kind of stood up. Like, he got hit with 3 or 4 flush spinning back kicks to the body and just doubled over because it hurts, and then just stood up straight, got himself back together, and got back to fighting. That one of those, to the average person on the street, might put him into you're down for a minute, at least. That hurts. I've been kicked in the liver not a lot, but a couple of times. Never with a really hard spinning back kick, and never by anyone who kicks even 1/10 as hard as Edson Barboza kicks. And you just kind of want, again, you want to just curl into a fetal position and cry for an hour.
Man.
Dan Hooker just okay, still coming forward. That last left hook to the body just finally shut him off. Really
I like body work, you know. When you utilize body work the correct way, it's devastating, you know.
Incredibly devastating.
It's a very overlooked aspect of the striking game. So I like seeing that.
Barboza is a great.
Sorry about your liver, Dan Hooker.
Sorry about your various internal organs.
It took a beating.
I would guarantee you he's got at least one busted rib after all that.
Yeah.
I mean, he also took a bunch of just left switch kicks to the body, knees. God, it was
surgical. It was surgical.
Barboza's one of the things Barboza does really well is he breaks down his opponent. I mean, his leg kicks don't just end fights; they hobble you.
He's technical, and he's always been incredibly technical.
Yeah, and then once you're hobbled, he goes to the body, and he does a great job of just systematically breaking down your ability to physically operate in the cage. I mean,
I think you called this matchup. You predicted Barboza, right?
No, I think I I called Hooker.
I picked Hooker here as well. So I mean,
yeah, and the more I thought about it, the more I kind of went.
Yeah, Barboza does well. He does better against strikers.
He does well against strikers. He also, this is something Daniel Cormier pointed out. I can't remember who did it first, if it was Cormier or Felder, one of the two of them. Edson Barboza doesn't really lose to the young up-and-comers, you know? The guys who beat him are the guys with experience and grit and
Pettis
and wherewithal. You know, the guys like Cerrone. I mean, Varner, when Varner beat him, Varner was the veteran in that fight.
Right.
So, Varner, Cerrone, Johnson, Ferguson, Khabib, and Lee. Those aren't young guys. Those aren't guys on the up and come. Those are war horses. And the guys that are coming up that maybe you're trying to make their name off of him, those are the guys he kind of smashes. And, Dan Hooker's a very analytical, cerebral fighter, and there's a degree that that's very helpful, but against a guy like Barboza, you have to pressure him and keep him out of sorts. And towards the end of the second round, it felt like that might have been starting to work. Hooker was, he took a beating that round, but he just kept coming, and Barboza seemed to be fading. And then in the third, Barboza got his second wind, and Hooker just never got back to fighting properly, and just got smashed further. I don't know. Again, I have no idea how Dan Hooker took all the abuse he did in this fight, because a tenth of that same abuse at pretty much anyone normally, and they're down. Half of that against the majority of professional fighters, and they're down.
Here, let me run a couple matchups by you and let me know what you think. Barboza versus Mike Chiesa.
Chiesa's at welterweight.
Oh, that's right. He is moving up now, isn't he?
He's fighting Condit.
He's still ranked at... Oh, poor Carlos Condit. James Vick, maybe.
232, I think, is actually when Condit and Chiesa are
James
fighting.
Vick? Maybe James Vick? Does James Vick have a fight lined up?
I don't think Vick has anything lined up yet. Barboza and Gagey would be all kinds of crazy.
That would be a fun fight. But
again, if you want insanity, one of those guys isn't walking for a week. Both of them.
I would probably pick Gagey for that fight. Honestly,
if he can,
it would be a crazy fight.
If Gagey can up his tempo, a lot of Gagey's pressure is methodical, and if he can up it and up the pace a little bit, he could easily kind of break Barboza's rhythm and get him in all those unhappy positions that he does so poorly in.
Barboza's problem, though, is really consistency. Because, he hovers around the top 5, and whenever he fights a guy ranked above him, that's the fight he tends to lose. So, granted, they're some of the best guys in the division, but
he's not losing to scrubs, but
he's always losing. Those are the fights he always loses. But look, you know what?
Jumps in there with Tony or Kevin Lee or Khabib.
I say I never expect so-and-so to be champion, and then, Michael Bisping sleeps Luke Rock, finally discovers his hidden knockout power, and sleeps Luke Rockhold and becomes champion. So,
that he never finds again for the rest of his career. One fight.
Right.
Blessed by God with one punch for one fight.
But but my point is here, it doesn't really matter what we say. It matters if you get that opportunity, and if you you can make it happen. It's possible. It's possible. It's not. It's within the realm of possibility. You just have to make it happen.
The only guy who in the division right now, I think I would. Look, do I think Barboza against Tony Ferguson goes all that differently the second time? No, not really.
Yeah.
But Barboza had a lot of success in that fight too. It was a wild fight. I loved it. I loved watching it live. I think the only guy who I would be really shocked to see Barboza beat is Khabib, just because of the styles.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the problem. That's my problem with rankings, is that, a lower ranked guy will probably beat a higher ranked guy because of the style matchup, So it's sort of hard to how do you quantify that? It's hard to quantify.
It is. We have rankings because Fox wanted rankings, but I don't think we don't really know what the criteria is, what they're trying to accomplish. Is the number one contender that's supposed to be the second best fighter in the division behind the champion? Does the champion get ranked independently of his championships, of his or her?
Guys don't fight for a while, stay on the rankings. Guys who aren't in that division stay in the rankings.
There's a lot that needs to be hashed out. But Again, good fight. I hope Dan Hooker comes back from this because I like Dan Hooker. I really do.
It's fun to watch, man. So yeah, take some time to rest and heal up, and
if you need
I
a
want
liver
to see
transplant, Dan, I can probably find someone who the world's better off without. Just throwing it out there.
Oh boy.
All right.
Tank Allen just got a liver transplant, apparently.
Bantamweights. Rob Font put a pretty thorough beating on Sergio Pettis for 3 rounds. He won 30-27 across the board. I mean, this went as expected. Font's bigger, Font's longer, Font's more well-rounded in a lot of respects.
Sergio Pettis is Sergio Pettis.
Look,
that's.
Can I just say this? Because I think Duke Roufus as a coach, has a real understanding of Sergio.
Yeah.
When he tells Sergio, stop being so technical, I mean, I love that. And Paul Felder on commentary, God bless him, because he trains with Duke Roufus now, mentions that, when he tells Sergio that, he's trying to get a specific reaction, because Sergio will just stay as a technical fighter in a fight he's losing. There's not that second gear. Is it second? I mean, there's not that different gear. There's not that different game plan. There's not that, technically I'm losing this fight. Let me throw a little bit of not all of it. Let me throw a little bit of technique out the window and try to make this ugly. And try to really dig in and see if I can have more success this way instead of staying with what I've been doing the whole time. And listening to Duke Roufus tell Sergio, stop being so technical, be more explosive, get some stuff going, and having Sergio just still get jabbed in the face 10, 15 times every 2.5 minutes. That's got to be the most frustrating thing in the world as a coach.
I mean,
because Sergio, there's a lot good about Sergio's game, but
am I too hard on Sergio Pettis?
I don't know. I mean,
he is only 25 years old, and
there's a lot good about his game, but there's not a lot of.
I mean, he might be great in the gym, but it's just like,
he really seems to struggle
in the cage.
If just being the better technical fighter isn't working for him, he doesn't seem to have a plan B. He doesn't have something else he can do. And that...
Even at flyweight, when he became like the number 2 ranked flyweight, and I mean, granted, that's partly just due to not being the most stacked.
Benavidez. That was like the best of Sergio Pettis was when he beat Benavidez like that.
But I mean...
But then he goes out and loses pretty clearly to Jussier Formiga.
He loses to Cejudo. He loses to guys like Ryan Benoit. Benoit.
Oh, Benoit just caught him with a stray punch.
Alex Caceres.
That was up at bantamweight.
But I mean, he's 25. Does he have potential to get better?
Yes. I mean, if anything, there's a bit of a balance that has to be struck when you start young as a fighter, because you don't want to get
really young. Because he's been fighting. Let's see, since 2011, he made his pro debut. So that was over 7 years ago. So he made his pro debut at 18.
Yep. And I imagine he had a bunch of kickboxing and jiu-jitsu tournaments that he did prior to that. There's a real balance that has to be struck with starting young and not getting shop worn and burned out physically too soon.
I just wonder.
It's a hard thing to do.
Did
it's a
he
hard
come
balance.
to UFC too early? That's kind of my concern here.
I think he did. I mean, he debuted at what? 6-0, 7-0?
He was 10-0?
10-0.
Or 9-0. 9-0. He came into the UFC. He beat... I remember, wasn't that Will Campuzano fight close, his debut in 2013?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't a great fight, but...
Right. So, he was 9-0. He had won the RFA flyweight title beforehand. A decent regional title. I think part of the problem is that also he's Anthony Pettis' little brother, because
there's a shadow there that he's been struggling to get out from under.
Granted, Pettis Pettis has also been a bit of not a bust, but like he's never quite been the superstar we thought he would be, right?
It's crazy to say about a guy who became champion, had such spectacular fights, and
At such
actually
a young
defended the
age.
belt. But yeah, he's like
Gotta
it always
Wheaties box,
seems like
gotta
he's just
Wheaties box.
not like one rung below where we all think he could or should be.
Right, and then Sergio's, I guess, I'm not trying to be mean here, but Sergio has just never inspired me with his fights.
No, I mean, again, even the ones he's looked good in, it's not. He's very forgettable.
Like, let's see, what was the one? I was there live at UFC for his fight with Chris Carriasso. And what I remember, I feel like he like looked really good early in that fight, and then did he not almost get finished in the last round, basically, in that fight? Let me see. At UFC 192 against Chris Carriasso.
There's two 29-27 scores, so he might have.
Yeah. So like the last round was basically a 10-8 round. For a fight he won. So that kind of stuff like that. That kind of bothers me, though, Robert. You know, that
almost should go the other way. No, because that means Pettis scored a 10-8 at some point.
Did he? Like, I remember just early in the fight he looked good, and then he almost gets finished in the final round. He scraped by.
I'd have to rewatch the fight.
That was the start of his winning streak, and like every win has been by decision, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but.
Well, it's a bad thing when. Hang on, it's a bad thing if you're just worried about your physical body. Every fight he's had in the UFC has. Let me see. Caceres was into the third. Benoit was in the second. Okay, but other than that, and one of those went all 5 rounds. Like that's a lot of minutes to be in combat. You know. And
I just worry that he might have come into the UFC a little too early. Now, look, sometimes, you fight out the UFC to try and mature and get some experience, get some wins, and you're still not ready. And you come back, or sometimes you can do like what Robbie Lawler did. And Lawler had a pretty, I think you would agree, a pretty amazing career resurgence.
Yeah.
And became a champion. So it's not an absolute rule. It's not the same. It's not the same for everyone. But I also wonder if in Sergio's case, if he was maybe not ready for the UFC level.
It wouldn't shock me if that was true.
Because I mean, yes, he did become a top ranked flyweight. But let's be honest, Robert. Flyweight was not a Shark Tank, right? You would agree.
It's not that
it was competitive, but it was competitive, but it was not a Shark Tank.
If it is, it's a shallow Shark Tank. I mean, waters can be shallow but dangerous, and that's kind of what I think flyweight was. It wasn't deep.
He beat some decent opponents. I mean, look, John Moraga, Brandon Moreno was a good win for him too. I mean,
Moreno was solid. Again, the Benavidez win was big. I mean, he's got some good wins.
But like that division is gone now, and he just might not be big enough for his weight class. So,
I mean, he's definitely on the small side of bantamweight, and he can't deal with it. He doesn't really know how to deal with being the smaller guy.
Right, being smaller is not necessarily a death sentence for your weight class. Being the smaller guy is not always going to. I mean, look at Matt Serra, for one. It's not. But
Frankie Edgar. I mean, there's a lot of guys.
But I mean,
but you have to know how to deal with it, and I don't know if Sergio does.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. He just might not be good enough for bantamweight in the UFC, and that's what I'm worried about for him.
Might not. We'll know going forward. All right, and kicking off the main card, Charles Oliveira defeats Jim Miller via rear naked choke in the first round. There were a grand total of 2 strikes landed by one each for each man. They clashed on leg kicks. Oliveira got the back standing, hit an elevated mat return kind of thing, and then got his back. And Charles Oliveira on your back, man, that's a nightmare. The man's grappling is superb. Got the choke from there, forced the submission, got to 12. He's got 12 submissions in the UFC. He's extending his record for having the most submissions all time in UFC history. And promptly said, please let me go back to featherweight. I want to get beat up by Max Holloway again. All
right. Aside from that, is Oliveira coming into his own now? Do you think he's... Should we recognize Oliveira as a force in this division?
I mean...
Or at all? Granted, it's Jim Miller in 2018, but...
Was this... No, because he got back... Hang on, he's won his last 3. Against Clay Guida.
He bonused out 3 in a row, submitted 3 in a row.
Yep. In fairness, he got the Yago submission for breaking the record, not because the submission itself was great. He's 4-1 since returning to lightweight, and the only loss is to Paul Felder.
Right.
Paul Felder's legit.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to see him fight someone of more relevance next.
Still only 29 years old. I mean, he started pretty young in the UFC.
Yeah.
Young for his career.
I don't know.
It's weird. It's weird with Oliveira because he started like really hot, then had some losses, then moved down to weight, and then when it seemed like maybe he could have been a force at featherweight,
he had able to make weight reliably.
Right. And then he moved back up, and he's done well. He's done fairly well since he moved back
Will
up.
Brooks, loses to Paul Felder, then wins 3 in a row.
I mean, Will Brooks is a solid win, even though he's not in the UFC anymore.
I didn't think he'd win that fight. I picked Brooks for that fight. That was a surprising win.
So I could see Oliveira breaking into the top 10 at some point.
It wouldn't shock me. I think he's certainly earned a top 10.
He just has to. He has to focus. He just has to focus. He has to get. I think he needs to get with him. I don't know what his camp is right now.
He is with.
Wikipedia says Diego Lima, Shootbox Diego Lima.
I don't think that's where he is right now.
Didn't it say he was training out of like Houston, Texas for this fight or something?
No, he did for a long time. I think he's at ATT now.
Okay. So I feel like he could, if he focuses on like forgetting the featherweight garbage and just focusing on getting better now, I think he could be like a pretty strong lightweight, honestly.
You know, I would like to see him and Dan Hooker next, actually.
That wouldn't be a bad fight. Because
I mean, assuming Hooker has a reasonable return schedule, because Oliveira can fight more regularly with this kind of...
Trinaldo or James Vick. James Vick is going to need a fight.
Vick's a possibility.
Vick, I don't think Vick has a fight lined up yet. I guess I would consider Oliveira kind of like fringe top 15 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, one more and definitely he's there. He's very close
but
to
he
it.
Can't. Look, featherweight's not happening, Oliveira. You can't. It's not going to happen.
Look, I appreciate that you weighed in at 152 for this fight. I really do. But
okay, so here we go. Vick is fighting Paul Felder at on the ESPN 1 card. That's a great fight, by the way.
Give him the. He already got beat by Felder, though. If Vick loses, give him Vick.
Okay, I'd be fine with that. Is Trinaldo still fighting?
Probably. You could do Trinaldo. I mean, I think Oliveira would probably tap him relatively quickly, but you could do it.
Trinaldo's coming off a win. So, like, Trinaldo has a great UFC record, all things considered. He's not like an elite competitor, but he's lightweight's a Shark Tank, man. And he's not a great white, but maybe you would consider him like a tiger shark or a mako or a lesser shark, right? Because let's see, 1, 2, 3,
unkind joke.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's 9-2 in his last 11. That's good.
Yeah.
Trinaldo's very consistent. When you're 40 years old, and in your last 11 fights, So you're fighting, the last few years you've been fighting.
Oh, and his losses are to, one of them's to Kevin Lee. Who's the other one to?
James Vick.
Yeah, Vick.
So
he's not losing to
top rank. He's losing to top ranked opponents.
He's only losing to guys who are really good.
I'd be fine with Trinaldo versus Oliveira, and I think that's a winnable fight for Oliveira, and that's a good, that's a good fight to move him up the ranks. So I like that fight. Get on it, UFC interns. What do we do with Jim Miller at this point, though?
Cut him. I hate to say it because I love Jim Miller, but I don't think he... I mean, it's tough because he just had a 4-fight losing streak, but if you look at who he's lost to, it's Poirier, Pettis, Trinaldo, Hooker, and Oliveira. Like, those are all really
ranked.
Solid fighters.
They're all ranked. His last win was over Alex White.
I mean, he beat a guy who shouldn't be in the UFC.
Right.
I mean, I think if I want to get a gauge on him, I need to see him fight someone who's not even a fringe top 15 guy, but also isn't a guy who's like 1 and 2 in the UFC.
Thing is, I don't even see Miller. I don't see him beating a Paul Felder or Dan Hooker at this point.
No. I mean, he already lost to Hooker,
and he lost to Oliveira, who maybe should be ranked but isn't. I think a guy like, well, Chiesa's not fighting at lightweight. What about Pettis? He was scheduled to fight Pettis at one point, right?
Probably. No, he lost to Pettis. They fought.
Did he?
Yeah.
When did they fight?
2016? 2017?
Oh, you're right. At 213. Yep. So they fought last year.
Somebody like
I don't want. Man, I kind of
okay. Ross Pearson.
I don't think Ross Pearson's in the UFC anymore, is he?
He's still there.
Is he? Really?
Pretty sure. He won his last
fight. Ross Pearson, loser leaves town, maybe?
Something like that. John McDessie.
Ross Pearson definitely doesn't belong in the UFC anymore. Sorry, Ross.
He had that really bad string of losses, but then he bounced back.
Oh, Pearson lost to McDessie.
Okay, no, he lost to McDessie. Okay, so John McDessie and Jim Miller. He's out of the division.
He's 35, but he's been fighting a long time. And he's not fighting my thing with Miller is he's not going to be moving up or moving down, and he's not fighting at a high level anymore,
Yeah, I'm genuinely worried about the amount of damage he's taking.
Well, it wasn't like he got knocked out here.
No, and again, this fight he didn't take any damage. But if you look at some of those other fights, man,
during
that a lot of abuse.
During that 0-4 stretch, those were because those were long fights.
Yeah,
where he got beat up in those fights, and then he got slept by Hooker with a knee. I'm not going to tell him I'm not going to say you have to retire.
Vince Pichel. Guys like
maybe,
that.
I don't know. The thing is, even if he went to Bellator, I could probably see some of the tougher guys in Bellator probably beating him.
Oh yeah, he's very near the end of his career.
I don't think he's ready to admit that yet, though.
He might not. Well, let me be. I definitely think he's very near the end of his UFC time. Mm-hmm. Whether or not he wants to continue fighting at the more regional level and can do so safely is on him. Oh man, hang on. Taisimov. I'd like to see him in Mirbek Taisimov as kind of a stress test for.
I think Taisimov would destroy him.
I would pick Taisimov, but Taisimov struggled with Desmond Green.
Maybe.
There's a lot of bodies at lightweight.
That's the thing about lightweight. It's just so, it's crowded.
It is. Anyway, I don't know. We're gonna, Jim Miller's not gonna be in the UFC that much longer, but it's winding down for him, man, and it happens to everybody.
But I mean, I have such great respect for Moore because the dude.
He's been in the trenches, man.
He's been a banger,
he fought
man.
everybody.
Yeah. And there was a time where he was legitimately one of the top lightweights in the world, if not.
Yeah. There was a time when he was one of the, say, 3 best.
Like top 3 easily.
Yeah, like him and Gray Maynard and Frankie were probably for a while the top 3 guys. All right. As for the prelims, on the plus side, if you looked at the prelims on paper, you'd know the ones that I think I said last week, like, oh, I'm looking forward to these 2. They turned out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The others kind of meh. Zach Otto defeated Dwight Grant via split decision. This was just the pity. Let's get the local guy a win. The fight sucked. But every other like Wisconsin native or guy who trains out of the area for this card got beat, which is hilarious to me. Drakkar Klose defeated Bobby Green via unanimous decision. Fun fight. A little surprised there was no split. And I scored it for Green, but I have no issues with Klose getting it. Again, it's one of those that comes down to like one round. And that was a close round. Joaquim Silva and Jared Gordon. This was all kinds of fun. Silva defeats Gordon via knockout in the 3rd round. Gordon was doing really well. And then at the end of the 2nd, he gets his back taken with one hook. And Silva goes for the Suluev stretch, that knee bar from holding the back. It's a nasty... Look, I've said this before. That's a nasty submission, man. It hurts. If you've never had to stretch... If you've never stretched like that, even if you do, it's just nasty. He goes for that. There's not enough time for him to really finish it. He gets close even then. Gordon posted afterward that he that move tore both his hamstring and his LCL. So the movement he had utilized through the first 2 rounds to not be involved in a feet-planted phone booth slugfest with the superior power puncher is now gone. He has to stand still, basically. And Silva, the superior power puncher, just catches him, backs him into the corner, knocks him out standing. Really good fight. Good back and forth stuff from both guys. Both underappreciated guys generally. Silva's only loss is to Vince Pichel, and he is otherwise he's 4-1 in the UFC. Dude's legit. Jack Hermanson defeated Gerald Meerschaert via guillotine choke. This was the... I gotta look up the name for this variant because it's the arm in, but the arm is not on the other side of your body. It's between their arm is trapped between your body and their neck. It's almost like an arm triangle general position, but you're in the guillotine. And there's a name for the variation, but I can never quite remember it. It's a powerful choke. It's a real nasty one if you can get it locked up. Hermanson's passing on the ground is really surprising. He cuts through the guard like it's not even there. Good win for him. Zach Cummings defeated Trevor Smith via unanimous decision. Meh. Dan Ige defeated Jordan Griffin via unanimous decision. Another meh. Mike Rodriguez defeated Adam Milstead via TKO. This was a body shot and punches in the 1st round. The guy they wanted to win won. And kicking everything off, Juan Adams defeated Chris De La Rocha via TKO in the 3rd round. This was a crappy heavyweight fight that went into the 3rd round. Mr. Adams, if you gas that badly, don't get on the mic afterwards and talk about how great your energy is. Because, seriously, no.
He got to the 3rd round.
Yeah, sure, and they both spent serious time sucking wind. There was almost that same moment from that terrible tough fight when they both just kind of bent over, put their hands on their knees, and went okay, we're going to take a minute here, right? Let's both just, okay. Oh, God. Juan Adams is also, in fairness to Mr. Adams, he's young, and he is a big guy. He cuts weight to make 265. And this is only like his 5th fight, I think, 5th or 6th. So, you can work on it, but oh, God, just crappy heavyweights, man. All right, what did you want to talk about from the rest of that card? What are your burning desires from the previous?
Zach Hermanson looked good. That was an impressive win. He's on his way.
Yeah, man, he's a big middleweight. I always think he's a light heavyweight for some reason.
He can do if he keeps it up, he could be moving up this division soon. So that's 2 in a row for him. I think he's now
he's
5
like
and
3 or he's 3 or 4 and 1 in the UFC.
He's 5-2. He's 5-2 in the UFC.
Twice. Who did he lose twice to?
Thiago Santos, who's really
Santos and Fajea, yeah. Yeah, he had a really long winning streak before that. I mean, he's good. All right, and that was again UFC on Fox 31, the last one. No more.
I mean, middleweight's not terrible right now, but we need some new blood to move up as well.
You always need new blood.
Yeah.
You never want the problem like light heavyweight has.
Right.
So, thank you to everyone who followed along. This amused me because, nobody cared about this card for so long. I don't know if it was just the start time that people weren't used to or what, but, man, just up until, the top 2 fights, it just seemed like there was no chatter about this card.
Because, it was right after the Holloway-Ortega. It's the holidays, and,
Well, and there were some other fights going on at different events around. There was a there was a Canelo fight around the same time.
The corpse of Frank Mir got exposed yet again.
Didn't Bellator have their Hawaii card or something that they lost money on?
Bellator 213.
That I guarantee they lost money on.
Because I think there's a crazy tax rate on events in Hawaii.
Hawaii has to import everything pretty much. Yeah, there's a reason the UFC hasn't run Hawaii. There's a reason there's not a major sports franchise in Hawaii, and it's not because people don't like Hawaii.
I gotta figure UFC could figure something out now with Max Holloway,
Yeah. They couldn't with BJ Penn.
Couldn't they get a sponsor or something?
I doubt it.
BJ Penn's still
the
fighting.
Tax rate is the tax rate.
BJ Penn's still fighting. They could get him to fight there. Even though it probably shouldn't happen.
Look, after BJ Penn gets one of his legs ripped off by Ryan Hall, now, I don't know. It's just expensive to run any kind of sporting event in that state. It just is.
Unfortunate.
It is. Because there are some great Hawaiian fighters.
Max Holloway deserves a fight in Hawaii. Come on. So this fight, it drew about 9,000 people. It looked pretty full, at least during the main event.
It was a slightly smaller venue, but yeah, it looked pretty full.
It looked like they had a decent-sized crowd. Milwaukee's not a huge city.
Geez, their gate was only 600,000 and change?
Does that mean the tickets were cheap?
Either that or they didn't sell.
Look, they didn't have a lot of star power for this card, and there's just not a lot of star power in the UFC in general right now. Ever since, Connor's become a basket case and Ronda left. All right,
yeah, the best. The best fight of the year wasn't seen by all that many people.
And John Jones is just constantly screwing up.
We'll know more in a couple of weeks after he fights again. Knock on wood.
We'll see. There's a lot of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of... look, you've got him and Gustafsson, and they've both had... John fought more recently than Gustafsson. Which is nuts.
So you wanted to talk about... So that marks this...
Yeah, that's the end of UFC on Fox, basically.
And Fox Sports, so...
There's one more. We'll have prelims for 232 on FS1. Okay. But that's it.
And so that at the end to close out the year.
Yep, close the year. There's only one more set of fights on the Fox networks. So
interesting.
Again, I wanted to just kind of briefly go over, do you have any
I was there at
moment What you thought might be the biggest moment, stuff like that.
I mean, I was there at the start. I was at UFC on Fox 1. That was pretty, and you know what?
Plans got derailed and they couldn't adjust.
But look, the whole event as itself, there was nothing wrong with it. The problem is we only got that one fight on the main card when they should have figured out a way to put Henderson versus Guida on there, and then you would have been fine. Show Guida versus Henderson in the first half, and then the second half is the heavyweight title fight, and everyone and it would have been fine because the event it did good numbers. They had good numbers. They just wanted to put the heavyweight title as the showcase. It just wasn't. I would have just said figure out a way to put Guida versus Henderson on there. And what's wrong with that, Robert?
Nothing, but instead we had, they actually mentioned, I think Dana mentioned it, that for that event there were 60 seconds of fighting and 60 minutes of talking.
Right. So again,
which wound up being about the ratio they would use for FS1 cards.
People called Henderson versus Guida the fight of the year. And I was there.
No.
People did.
It was one of them, but I don't think it was the fight of the year that year.
People were calling it a fight of the year candidate, and I was there.
Absolutely. It was a great fight.
And I was there for that. So, I mean, why should I complain about going home from watching a fight card like that, And I liked seeing Junior win because Junior was the underdog at that point,
Oh, no, if all you did was experience that event live and in person, it was probably great. I just remember that I laughed because after Junior won, Dana was just visibly pissed.
I guess some in terms of changes, they got rid of. We saw a lot of sponsors had to go away. Condom Depot, gun store, in-cage sponsors and banners basically had to disappear completely for the new uniform deal. So just in terms of changes for the fighters, they tried live fights on the Ultimate Fighter once, and honestly, I didn't hate it.
I didn't watch it because I had long since tapped out of that series. And then the Ultimate Fighter pretty much went off a cliff and has never returned. It was already in free fall at that point, just hadn't realized it.
It was, and yet they kept on it for whatever reason. I still don't understand it.
I don't get it either, but
it's still on today.
If everyone makes even the smallest of profits, they're going to keep doing it.
The rankings we got official rankings. I think the ranking. I don't think the rankings are bad in theory. I just think it's impossible to get good rankings in this sport. In
a lot of ways, yeah.
Official rankings. I won't call them a disaster, but they've been high. I'll just say official rankings in the Fox era have been highly problematic because, as you said, there's no criteria. Even still to this day, Michael Chiesa is ranked in the top 15. So,
yeah,
to me, I would just, one hard rule I would say if you don't have a fight scheduled or haven't fought in a year, you're off the rankings. Period. To me, that would be a rule. I don't think that's unreasonable either.
I don't disagree.
Any other? Now I will say this in terms of production values, and production elements we've had in the Fox era have been, I would say, generally fantastic. UFC on Tonight was a great supplementary program for the UFC. I don't think you can deny that. We've seen some.
I didn't really watch it, but I don't object to I don't object in general principles.
UFC. As the sort of weekly, sort of basically UFC Sports Center.
Yeah.
UFC Tonight was a good show. The shoulder programming was always, I would say, exceptional. The Road to the Octagon, when they would do the Road to the Octagon specials, were generally exceptional. I think whenever they would do sort of those fight analysis and breakdowns were always very good. So I would say in terms of production elements, shoulder programming, all the work done.
Honestly, my favorite production thing that the Fox deal ushered in was the severely cutting back, if not outright removal, in instances of Face the Pain.
Right.
Especially in favor of like Ron Perlman's opening narrations, which are great.
The Ron Perlman narration, the Ruby Rose narrations, they would get those for like the Ronda Rousey fights. Not that I'm a huge Ruby Rose fan, but I think she kind of did a good job on those.
Well, they got John Malkovich to intro the Khabib versus Conor pay-per-view. So getting more stuff like that and less Face the Pain, I'm all for.
Right. Commentary. Did commentary get better with Fox?
I mean, it didn't get worse.
I guess because they got rid of Mike Goldberg.
That helped. I mean, they've been experimenting with the 3-man booth. I mean, I think if I had to sum up the entire Fox deal, it's just
here's the other thing.
Bag.
The Fox deal also did give opportunities to fighters to get work outside of the UFC as well, and that's good for the fighters.
Yeah, getting guys to do analyst roles, getting guys to sit on an analyst desk or do commentary.
Like Yves Edwards. It was able to give Yves Edwards work. A deserving talent and fighter like Yves Edwards, he was able to get work consistently because of the Fox deal. And I think that's good. I can understand a mixed bag, yeah, because they started having so many fights, and it did get a little watered down and diluted, you know. And I think the other thing is that they lost a huge chunk of the audience because of Fox Sports and Fox Sports 1. I don't think it was a good deal for the UFC, and I stand by that. It was bad for the The Fox Sports 1 deal was bad for the UFC, Robert. And am I wrong?
I don't have access to all the relevant information to completely say one way or the other on that.
Just based on what I've seen in general, they did better when it was FX and Fuel.
I mean, again, I can't wholeheartedly agree. I have no information to disagree either.
And the ratings on main Fox have not done that well either.
They've been really up and down. I mean, that's one of the things about this that kind of surprised me. They weren't really able to turn guys from people who had the exposure of Fox into pay-per-view draws, and they didn't put a lot of their big pay-per-view draws on Fox.
Here's my thing. There were guys who clearly did well in terms of ratings on Fox, who were good in terms of ratings. Nate Diaz was one. Benson Henderson. Benson Henderson always did good numbers on Fox, and the data supports that.
The couple of times he fought on Fox. Some of that was also timing. I mean, one of the things about the big Fox cards was if they had the NFL. If football season was going on and they could get some promotional material on football games, they tended to do better than during the off season because there's a lot of crossover there, and that's when more people are watching Fox. Generally, is when there's football. I mean,
I recall Benson Henderson
fights on Fox.
Benson Henderson did some fights that weren't on Fox that did well in the ratings. You know?
Yeah, Bendo was a pretty decent draw, all things considered.
So I mean, maybe he doesn't. Don't you want? Maybe Benson Henderson isn't going to draw a million pay-per-view buys, but no one does at this point other than Conor McGregor, right? So I feel like that's why I didn't get letting go of Benson Henderson, because you want guys, because if you're going to have all these fights on TV, I feel like you want guys who can pull in the viewers on TV. And Benson was able to do that for a while, fairly consistently, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, Benson drew better numbers than Demetrius Johnson.
Almost. Oh, yeah. That doesn't shock me.
So as you, but I think here's the other thing about the pay-per-view. We've moved, we're moving in the other direction, away from models like a pay-per-view event to streaming and what have you. Like when this deal started, there was no Fight Pass, there was no WWE Network, and then a few years later, all that started gearing up. So I think streaming has sort of taken away from the pay-per-view business, monthly streaming services.
Man, Nate Diaz was on a lot of those Fox cards. I'm just looking at them.
And I think a lot of the ones he headlined or had a major fight on, I think all did good numbers, at least comparatively to what they're doing now. So I just think it's worth looking at.
Again, Diaz has. I'm not the biggest fan of Nate or Nick for that matter, but
neither am I.
Solid draw.
Neither am I. But I just think it's worth.
Well, I mean, Nate also arguably had the best moment in the history of the Fox deal after he beat Michael Johnson and then proceeded to, in a profanity-laden rant, call out Conor that led to two of the most successful pay-per-views they've ever done.
So I guess maybe Fox did create a pay-per-view draw in Nate Diaz, right? There you go. Who also
you got one. You got one
never
out of 7 years.
Who also? Conor McGregor.
Conor had one fight on Fox.
Yeah, but it did well, did it not?
He was in the co-main event, fighting Dennis Seaver. Or was he even further down that card?
He had one on Fight Pass, as I recall.
Yeah, I mean, I think he came in on Fight Pass, but I think he served as one of the prelims.
He came in on Fuel TV. His UFC debut was Brimage it was on Facebook.
Way back in the day, geez.
For the Fuel TV card. And then his second fight was Max Holloway. That was Shogun versus that was Fox Sports 1. So he was in, I think they moved him right up to the co-main for that. No, not co-main. No, he was on the FS1 prelims for that. Jeez.
Yeah, he did a couple of those. Now,
so that was FS1. Now McGregor versus Brandao was on Fight Pass.
Yep, that was the Ireland card.
That was the Ireland card, and then Seaver, then Poirier was main card on pay-per-view. Okay. So that was main card pay-per-view, and then after that was Dennis Seaver, and that was main event of Fox Sports 1. So there you go.
He was never on Fox. All right.
He was never on main Fox, they did create a couple pay-per-view stars. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, again, there were some real highlights. There were some real lowlights that came out of this as well. So hopefully everyone learns going forward, because I don't want to keep dealing with FS1 pacing on ESPN.
I feel like they're still overextending themselves. Look at this 233 situation.
Yeah, let's go ahead and dovetail into that, because this was announced over the week. UFC 233 has been postponed / canceled.
Canceled, okay? What is this?
If you remember last week, we mentioned that they had moved the original main event for 233, which was the flyweight title fight between Cejudo and Dillashaw, to the Brooklyn card so they could main event UFC Fight Night 140.
I looked up the definition of postponed to you. Cause or arrange for something to take place at a time later than that first scheduled. So when is 233 going to take place? Never. It's canceled. What is this? What is this corporate postponement BS, Robert? Come on here.
No, there's not enough time to squeeze it in somewhere else before 234.
Postponement means we are going to have a UFC 233 at a later date, right? That's the definition of postpone. But that's not what's going to happen. You can't change the definition of things here. Okay?
No, they bumped up Cejudo versus Dillashaw for Fight Night 143 because
this is not on Tyron Woodley. This is on the UFC.
I mean, I know that it's fun to throw
Tyron
Woodley under the bus, but
Tyron Woodley fought in September.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe Ben Askren, and you can take that with as much salt as you feel necessary, he says both Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington turned down fighting him at 230.
Kamaru just fought, so I don't know. Covington maybe, but I don't know what's going on with Covington. Okay, maybe Covington, but I mean, you're relying on Askren and Covington to save a fight card.
Hey.
That would have been that. People would not. I mean, that wouldn't have drawn money. I mean, people aren't. Historically, do you think they have great fights, Robert?
No.
So,
hey, look again.
I mean,
I don't disagree with your general point.
This is insanity, and this same thing happened to UFC 176 for Mendes versus Aldo too. They never had that. They never had. And why can't we just change the numbering of events? Why can't we change the numbers? This is the third time.
I don't know. That I don't know. I mean, I imagine it might have to do with all the promotional material they put out, and they just don't want to cause confusion by renumbering after they've put up, billboards and advertisements and whatnot.
Excuse me. Well, I mean, what about the confusion they create by canceling an event?
Well, at least everyone knows it's canceled.
Well, no, because they're saying it's postponed.
Hey, I know, but anyone with a brain knows that.
I'm not. I can't deal with this. I'm not. This is on the UFC. Schedule less events. It's that simple.
Relative to that, we also lost. There was a fight that was two fights from that card that I was looking forward to. Dominic Cruz officially had to pull out of his fight with John Lineker, which sucks.
No kidding. No kidding.
Again,
Dominic Cruz
we knew he was injured. We knew he was injured.
He's always injured.
I know.
Retire, Dominic.
And again, it sucks
your
because
little Toyo
I love watching Cruz fight.
Go off on TJ Dillashaw and Forrest Griffin in your little Toyo tire commercials.
Ugh, man, that's such a stupid commercial.
At least they're getting paid.
I agree. I object to the substance of the commercial, not giving them money. You know what? Those guys should get paid. And why, for the love of all the Tolly, is Forrest Griffin a thing? But anyway, we lost that fight. Sucks. We also lost Joseph Benavidez versus Deiveson Figueiredo for reasons.
What happened there?
That's unclear. I don't know. I know that fight got scrapped. We now get Benavidez versus Dustin Ortiz for Fight Night 143.
Will that be at flyweight?
Yes.
Oh my god. I mean, that's not a bad fight either, honestly.
No, I really wanted Benavidez and Figueiredo because I really like that fight.
I wanted to go to the fight. I wanted to go to the fight card. This is in Southern California, where I live.
Let me see. Was there?
I don't think I've been to a live UFC fight since Ronda versus Carmouche.
I've never. All right. Never.
Well,
I think everything else got moved around effectively enough. Casey and Calvillo got rebooked.
Trinaldo's supposed to be fighting someone. Felder versus
Lawler got moved.
Mark Skuro, Alexandra Albu, who I think is supposed to fight again.
Yeah, she's.
Wow,
what a massive waste of time that is.
I know why they hired her, but
same reason they hired Felice Herrig.
Hey, Felice Herrig.
I'm not saying Felice Herrig hasn't won fights in the UFC. She has. You ask me what got her in the door?
Come on, man. She's fought for a long time.
She has.
Even said she was really just doing that to get noticed.
Hey, it worked.
You're talking about one of the pioneers of women's MMA.
I'm not talking about Roxanne Modafferi.
She's been fighting since 2009. You should have more respect.
I at no point said she couldn't fight.
All right, you're mean.
That's
You're a mean man.
true.
You're a mean man.
Neither of which is relevant.
I'm just saying, at
I
least
think everything else got rescheduled.
She has 14 wins. Albu has only fought like 3 times.
Yep, I'm aware.
She's undefeated.
Yes, she is. And has better cardio than Herring.
You know what? I hope she fights again.
Yeah, she's scheduled to fight Emily Whitmire that got moved to UFC on ESPN1.
Well, I just hope they'll be able to get decent
Boy, they are really trying to load that card. ESPN1.
ESPN1. To me, like,
there's a lot of women fighting on that card.
If you want title fights, shouldn't you want a title fight for the first ESPN card and not just ESPN Plus?
There's a reason they haven't announced a main event for ESPN1, which is scheduled to take place in February. We have most of the card announced. It'll
be an interim title fight.
We'll see. I mean, at the moment, it's not a great card, but it's not the worst. You have Murphy and Ashley Evans Smith, Jessica Penne and Jody Escobar, Jimmy Rivera and Aljamain Sterling's a really good fight. James Vick and Paul Felder's a good fight. Benito Lopez and Manny Bermudez is kind of meh. Courtney Casey, Cynthia Calvillo. Miles Jury and Andre Feely, Albu and Whitmire, Scott Holtzman and Nick Lentz, Alex Caceres and Kron Gracie, Henan Barrow and Luke Sanders. There's a couple of decent fights there, but yeah, they're missing the big title fight, and expect the pressure to be ramped up on every sitting champion.
Except Khabib.
And look, bear in mind, again,
script Khabib. Hashtag script Khabib.
Look, again, I said this a couple of weeks ago. I don't agree with what Khabib did. I don't agree with what Conor did. I can't believe that it's been, 2 months now? And
strip him.
And we've done no. Hang on. And
strip him of the title.
The Nevada State Athletic Commission has done nothing.
Strip Khabib. That's the only strip Khabib. Give Tony Ferguson and Poirier something to fight for.
Yeah, then one of them will get hurt. I mean,
you know what? At least we'll have a title. At least we'll have a legitimate, undisputed champion.
I mean, look, again, this is relatively simple. If you're Nevada, you just find both guys, retroactively suspend them to the date of the fight, and we all move on.
I think this calls for more drastic measures.
I don't.
You agree? Yes. You know I'm right here.
Look, again, I don't agree. Again, I don't support what Khabib did, but
I don't either. That's why I want to strip the title.
It's what happened, and look, there's a reason I'm saying I want to do it the way I want to do it. Because
Eric Bischoff, the bullet has left the barrel. Eric Bischoff.
Because I want Tony versus Khabib to headline the first ESPN card.
It can't. It's not happened. The gods will not allow it.
I am aware that there's some unholy force aligned against that fight, which is the best fight in all of MMA.
It's never going to happen. You can't even try. You can't even sniff it. You can't even mention it. It won't take place.
But
Ferguson
again,
versus
the fact that
Poirier,
we don't have
Ferguson. Tell me Poirier is not deserving. Tell me Poirier is not deserving.
Poirier is not deserving.
How?
You just said. You just wanted me to say it. Fine.
How
I
can
said
it. How can you honestly say that?
I didn't say I agreed with it, but I can say it.
Okay. Poirier. So then you agree Poirier is deserving of a title shot.
Yeah. He's not more deserving than other people. I would go with Tony first. Yes. I would go with Tony over everybody.
Tony versus Poirier is your best bet. And that should be for the title. Book it on ESPN. Dana, Mick Maynard, Sean Shelby, you're welcome. Give me a call sometime.
I mean, quite frankly, they could just do that fight as your number one contenders fight.
No. That should be for the title because Tony Ferguson is the best lightweight in the world.
He might be. He very well might be.
He is. Because I said it and I believe it.
That doesn't alter reality.
Usually it does.
There are people who believe the earth is flat.
I mean, one of them is Eddie Bravo. So, there.
That doesn't I don't care. The earth's not flat.
And he's a very successful He's a very successful.
I respect Eddie Bravo's contributions to jiu-jitsu. I respect his cornering ability. He's got good analysis. The man's a bit crazy.
Okay. He's an advocate for marijuana.
Look, Eddie's a horrible conspiracy theorist.
Okay.
Like, bear in mind, not just like flat Earth crap. There's so much.
Conceive, believe, achieve. Tony Ferguson is the best lightweight in the world and should be fighting for the lightweight title.
I would again.
That's
why I just want Khabib again. Just find him.
Khabib. Look at what Khabib and Conor have done. They don't have respect for this sport, or for their legacies, or for the title.
Khabib has one incident, a grand total of one.
He has multiple incidents.
What's another one?
He got into a fight with one of the Diaz brothers at an event.
They threw drinks at each other at a club. That's nothing.
He slapped, and he and his Russian buddies went up on what's his face, Conor's buddy.
Look, what? So he had a conversation with Artem Lobov, which
he slapped him. Artem Lobov. He shouldn't have done that.
I mean, look, Artem Lobov shouldn't be a thing, but
I agree. But do you think it was okay that he and his buddies went up to the guy and slapped him in the face?
He didn't slap him in the face.
Yeah, he did.
I've seen the video. He didn't slap him.
But they shouldn't have done that. Period.
No, look, Artem Lobov. I'm not excusing Conor
McGregor. I'm not excusing Conor McGregor because I was disgusted by what he did. But he shouldn't have been doing that in the first. Like, don't go up with your posse or your Russian buddies and try to intimidate the guy, because I'm sorry, Robert, that's thug-like behavior. That is thug-like behavior. Is it not?
I don't think he should have done that. I also don't. Again, there's a lot of stupid crap exactly like that happens all the time in this sport.
Right, and it's not okay. I'm sorry. And Tony Ferguson is like the last bastion of hope for this division. And he should be fighting for the title because that's what he deserves.
You're gonna stake your hopes on a guy who's almost 40 and is threatening to ankle pick people at press lunch.
And what is wrong? What's wrong? Because he will.
Look,
it's not a threat.
Tony's just as crazy as Conor and Khabib are.
All right, and when is 34 almost 40?
It's almost
40.
Come on
here. It's not.
Sure,
that's
is.
That's over half a decade away from 40.
Yeah, almost
give me a
40.
break.
If you're not past 40, you're
37,
almost 40.
37, 38, that's almost 40. Okay, wait until he's past 35 to say almost 40.
Nah, he's almost 40.
All right, all right. Whatever. Tony Ferguson has never embarrassed the UFC or the sport like Khabib and Conor.
I don't know, man.
You don't know.
Hang on, tearing your knee into 8 pieces because you're wearing sunglasses indoors and can't see wiring.
That's still not as bad as what Khabib and Conor have done.
It's not as public as what Conor and Khabib did, but it's just as stupid.
All right. He tripped and he injured himself. He didn't
take off your damn Ray-Bans inside.
All right, but he didn't break the law. He didn't break any laws by doing that.
No.
So yes, that's dumb.
Look, the discussion was intelligence, not criminality.
Hey. All right. Well, I'm not saying Tony Ferguson is the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm saying he's the best lightweight in the world and should be fighting for a lightweight title. And I'm saying Conor and Khabib disgrace the sport in this division, strip Khabib of the title until he gets this all worked out, and let's see the real lightweight champion, Tony Ferguson, defended against a real contender in Dustin Poirier. That's the best we can do right now.
It wouldn't be Poirier.
Who would it be?
I don't know, but...
You don't know? You don't know?
No. Nate Diaz. That's what they would book.
Like Nate Diaz would accept that fight. Come on.
If they pay him enough, he will. I'm just saying, you know what? Because, again, do I think Poirier and Tony's a fantastic fight between the two most deserving contenders? Yes, absolutely. But Ferguson only
Nate Diaz would not accept a fight with Tony Ferguson because he'd be scared in his boots.
Look, Nate Diaz
Ferguson,
no. Look, you can accuse Nate Diaz of a lot of things.
Ferguson would embarrass Diaz worse than Rafael dos Anjos when Rafael dos Anjos slapped him in the face like the child that he is. Like the redheaded stepchild.
Would Tony just carve him into little pieces? Yes. I don't think Nate Diaz is afraid of that fight.
Yes, he is.
No. You can accuse Nate of a lot of
He would run away from that. He ran away from Dustin Poirier.
Why did he run away from that fight?
Because the fight, he refused to still fight him after Poirier got hurt.
Okay, so I don't think he's running. I think Nate just knows what he wants. I don't think those are the same thing.
All right. Well,
anyway,
Ferguson versus Poirier.
The point being, we still don't have a main event.
For 2 months away, we don't have a main event. When we have the main event, UFC just doesn't have the courage to do what's right here.
I don't know. Dustin Poirier was lobbying for that McGregor rematch more than anything else.
I mean, Conor McGregor can't fight either. He's on indefinite suspension.
I'm just saying, that's what Poirier wants.
Well,
he might wait for that, man. He might sit and wait for Conor.
Well, look. Conor they put a continuance on Conor until January, I think, from Nevada, right?
Again, like if Nevada would just handle this already, we could actually have this done.
I mean, so I don't think they're gonna make any sort of ruling or anything until January, right?
Yay, bureaucracy.
And then I guess hypothetically, if it gets resolved in January, maybe they could set it up in a month from then, because it's Conor, so maybe it could work out. Stranger things have happened, but Tony Ferguson is
fighting before that.
Tony Ferguson is the guy. Strip Khabib and do it right now. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
You know what would be the funniest damn thing in the world? Tony wins and becomes a bigger prima donna than Conor.
You know what? Tony
he wins and won't fight. He just, yay, I'm the champion.
You know what? Considering how he's been jerked around, I would not have a problem with that.
It would just be the funniest thing in the world to me.
Because you know what?
Happened.
I want to know why. Because the fans have never really given him the respect he deserves. The fans, the media, you included, and the UFC.
No, don't give me that. I've been on the Tony bandwagon for a while.
It's been half-hearted.
Absolutely not. Tony's had some of the. He's one half of my third favorite fight this year.
Okay.
He was part of the best fight a couple of years ago. I loved his fight with Barboza. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. I just don't get all that passionate about it. Because I don't really see the point.
All right, so you would agree that the fans and media do not give him his due.
I don't know. That depends entirely on what you believe he's due.
I mean, he should be celebrated as one of the top lightweights in the sport. And I don't feel like he is. Because everyone, whenever something happens, no one's talking about him or getting him in a title. It's always Conor.
Well, the fact that he just came back from that major knee injury contributes to that. Like, there was just a lot of time when he was out of the discussion. And I think we've all been burned by, the fight between him and Khabib so often.
He hasn't lost in 5.5 years.
Oh, yeah. His incredible winning streak, incredible finish rate, and the guys he's beaten are the cream of the crop.
All right. Give him what he's due. Give him his due. Give him his title fight now. No interim title garbage. The real title. Khabib has proven he is not worthy of that title. His father in Russia agrees with me. Okay? He is not worthy of that title, that belt anymore. He doesn't deserve it. Tony Ferguson deserves it.
No, then why should he even fight?
What do you mean?
I mean, you've anointed him, so why should he even fight?
Because let's make it official. That's why.
Why should he fight? Why should he defend? We all know he's going to win. He doesn't need to fight.
Because we need to make it official. That's why.
Nah, just give it to him and force him into retirement. We don't need to see Tony
See,
fight.
this
It's not
is
fair
this,
to the
all right,
division.
all right. See, this is what I mean here. You are not a true Tony Ferguson fan. Because I feel like a true fan wants to see him fight and win that title that he has been denied for years. He could have been fighting. He could have been fighting for that title years ago.
Assuming Conor hadn't screwed the division up, yes, and assuming he hadn't gotten hurt as often as he did, yes.
Okay. Look at how Khabib spent how long on the shelf? Like
I'm aware of how long Khabib spent on the shelf. I'm also aware he had to win several fights before they put him in the title scene again. Tony blows out his knee, has one fight back.
It wasn't several. It was like 2 fights.
More than one. Well, look, it's a crappy situation. I get it, and I don't know what
the problem is. It's the idea of Tony fighting Khabib scares you to death.
I love that fight. I love that fight to death. I want that fight. I have just been so screwed by getting excited for that fight so many times. Because all I want is Tony Ferguson's title fight. That's what I want. And I've been denied it so long. And it annoys me to no end. Yeah, give it another 3 weeks. He'll destroy his ankle somehow. And then the whole thing gets even cloudier.
All right, it was 3 fights after he came back. Because Daryl Horcher, Johnson, Barboza. Before he got the title. But look, he was on the shelf for freaking
a while.
2 years.
Oh yeah, he was out for over a year.
2 years. 2 years.
Long time he was out.
Because he was training with bears or some nonsense. Okay.
It was a knee injury followed by him busting a rib.
Just a lot of things back to back.
Yeah, it was a really unfortunate. I mean, those 2 guys, man, it sucks because they are the 2 best in the world at that weight class, and we can't seem to get them into the cage, and it kills me inside.
Okay. Well, here's one more fight. Here's one more fight that, in terms of news, Mickey Gall versus Diego Sanchez set for UFC 235. You know what? Mickey Gall very, very might well be one of the smartest men this sport has ever seen.
That man knows how to promote himself and how to get himself very winnable fights with relatively high profiles.
He made a mistake against who was it? Randy Brown.
And in fairness to him, he had moments of success in that fight. He had a really good second round.
Now, what I think Mickey Gall is probably the smartest man this sport has ever seen.
Him and Conor.
I feel like Mickey has watched and listened to our show. He's one of the few, right? And he has learned. It's like he's learned the tricks, you know.
Let me see, because Rose is still injured, right?
Didn't he make a ridiculous call out after the Sullivan win?
He wanted a rematch with Sage Northcutt.
Who's not even in the UFC anymore, and
who he already beat convincingly. Yeah, hang on. Rose is still injured, right?
Right.
Shevchenko just won, and her number 1 contender is ass. Nunes is fighting Cyborg.
You know, Dana White got so steamed about Chuck Liddell fighting Tito because he's friends with Chuck Liddell, and then
you're parading Diego Sanchez against young guys who actually know how to fight.
I mean, he said that California should not have regulated that fight. Should California even regulate this fight, Robert?
I don't think Diego Sanchez should have this fight. No, I don't think they should let it happen.
But Diego won his last fight. He's coming off a win.
I don't care. Look, the guy he fought should not have been in the UFC, first of all.
Probably.
In that fight, and I remember this fight because I covered it, he got knocked out at least twice with up kicks, but just recovered fast enough to be, oh no, I'm still on top in guard working. It was the dumbest thing in the world.
All right. But I mean, on some level, you got to respect the intelligence of Mickey Gall, right?
Oh, yeah. Again, Gall seems to just okay, this fight, I have the best chance of winning with the lowest risk for the highest reasonable reward. It's crazy. And you know what? God bless him for it.
It's like he's better at this than Derek Lewis.
Yeah. I mean, if he could actually fight to a reasonably high degree, he might be up. Again, I still think Conor's the smartest guy in terms of self-promotion, but Mickey Gall continues to just make incremental decisions like this that are relatively intelligent.
Like he's playing 3D chess with this sport, basically.
All chess is three-dimensional.
You know the Star Trek 3D chess.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Why are you giving me a hard time?
That's not the metaphor I would use, but okay.
Multiple. It's chess with multiple boards representing different levels.
Yeah, I know. Now that you mentioned it, I know what I've seen enough Star Trek to know to get your frame of reference now.
Okay. Yes. Technically, the pieces of chess are 3D, but the plane they're playing on is not. You can't move up or down. You can only move like back and whatever. You know what I mean?
You only have the X and Y axis, not the Z axis.
Right. Exactly. There you go. So that's why it's not 3D chess.
Again, the metaphor I would use is actually more poker related, but
my point is, Mickey Gall has gone a level beyond playing chess, not checkers. He's playing Star Trek 3D chess with this game, where others are not.
I mean, again, all I'd say is he's good at collecting blinds and antes.
Okay.
Which is a valuable skill to have, mind you.
But that's but good for him.
I hope he knocks out Diego Sanchez and then makes another equally stupid call out because, hey, why not?
Yeah.
Watch Diego lay and pray for 3 rounds, though, and then insist he's ready for a title shot.
But that's all I have for this week, unless you've heard anything else pressing.
Let me check Twitter one more time, see if anything crazy happened.
Machida beat Rafael Carvalho at Bellator 213.
Mediocre fight.
Frank Mir also got beat on that
card. Mir had that injury. Ed Ruth lost on that card, I say, to one of the Gracies, right?
Oh, did he? Let's see.
Because they had
Alima Lay McFarland defeated UFC veteran Valerie Letourneau. Neiman Gracie.
Neiman Gracie beat Ed Ruth. McFarland won with like a bicep crusher.
Man.
Yeah, it was a weird.
Muhammad Lawal got knocked out again
by Liam McGarry, right?
Man, I was pretty high on Muhammad Lawal some years back.
Lawal had a lot of potential that he wasted fighting in terrible divisions.
I really had high hopes for him going to the UFC at some point and having.
Dude's wrestling is legitimately world class.
Yeah,
he just never uses it because he
could have. I mean, he could have gone.
Made him a boxer.
Could have gone to the Olympics. You know, it's unfortunate. Just made some bad decisions.
Well, and I don't think he's ever fought in his natural weight class.
What is he like? You think he's like a natural one?
Have you seen a picture of that picture that was floating around of him and Ryan Bader in the cage together?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, Lawal's a middleweight.
I mean,
who's just been getting by fighting at heavyweight and light heavyweight for years because he was in
Strike
other
Force
organizations.
Strike Force, and Sengoku.
Yeah, again, dude should have been at middleweight. All right. If that's everything, and again, I don't think anything's broken within the last 5 minutes. There's still notes about. People are still pretending that Nick Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal is going to be a thing.
We'll see.
Nick's now saying he never agreed to the fight. And, quite frankly, I think that's the more likely scenario than Dana ever having gotten him to agree to it in the first place. So there's that. For people who think that Nick Diaz is coming back, guys, he's not. Get over it. All right, let's go ahead and do plugs then. What would you like to plug, sir?
Check out my review of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Next, I will be reviewing Bumblebee and Aquaman. So be on the lookout for my reviews of that as well.
I have to sit through those.
Well, I already sat through Bumblebee, and it wasn't,
Well, what's done is done. I don't want to get you into breaking NDAs or anything. But if you've already done it.
No, I mean, I don't have an NDA for Bumblebee. It wasn't the worst. It was far from the worst. So, I mean...
Well, considering that the depths that franchise has sunk to...
I will say, is Bumblebee getting way overhyped? Yes, it definitely is. It's decent. It's the first decent live-action Transformers movie, yes.
Honestly,
but it's not
my response to that when people say it's the best Transformers movie ever, okay.
All right, and look...
A chimp could make the best Transformers movie ever at this point.
Travis Knight and Christina, it's pretty easy when all they have to do is copy E.T. and the Iron Giant, It's pretty easy when that's pretty much all they had to do. Hey, let's
mash
just
up
remake
these two other things.
Let's just remake Iron Giant. E.T. will wholesale copy scenes from those movies and just put them in here, and people will call it brilliant. And you know what? So far, it's worked.
In fairness, no one saw the Iron Giant.
It's still a classic, and it is now retroactively recognized as a classic. So.
I don't disagree, but if you're gonna,
people have seen E.T. though.
A lot of people have seen E.T. Yeah, I think the best way I heard this described was you're only as brilliant as the obscure things you steal from.
Mac and Me, which is fresh in my mind now because they just did it on season 2 of MST3K. Which was, and granted, Mac and Me was just kind of like a 1980s ripoff of trying to ride on.
A lot of people ripping off E.T.
Yeah, a lot of movies were ripping off E.T. in the 80s. So this is very much cut from a similar kind of cloth. I even thought the house in the movie looked like the house from Mac and Me. I'm like, didn't I just see this house on MST3K?
That's the secret to the low budget. Okay, we're gonna reuse all these sets.
Shooting in Calabasas, California, basically. I'm not
your budget.
I'm not 100% sure that's where they shot the film, but it looks like the same house from that freaking film. All right, so that's all I have for this week. Thank you, Robert. And are we going to be back next week?
Yes. Next week we will be previewing 232. Because there's nothing the 22nd, but the 23rd,
all right,
we'll be previewing that for the 29th.
All right, so at least we'll be able to end the year with a big fight, at least. So
knock on wood that it holds together.
You better be behaving yourself, John Jones, which I don't think he is.
John, don't do anything stupid. Gustafson, don't get injured.
Pretty much, but thank you guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, and happy holidays. Be safe.
Yep. As for myself, not this Tuesday. Let me double check. Yeah, not the 18th, but Wednesday the 26th. So there's no Damn You Hollywood this week. Because, we'll be reviewing Bumblebee on the 26th rather than the 25th, because even Mark won't make me work Christmas, but he will make me work New Year's. Because Tuesday the 1st will be Aquaman, but I don't think there's a movie this week, so yay. But Bumblebee and Aquaman back to back is that's a rough one. But you can find me at those places, and again next Sunday we will be previewing UFC 232, hoping everything holds together. Alternatively, I'm rooting for it to collapse into chaos because I'm a terrible person. All right, that's it for me. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you for sharing us with your friends if they're interested in the sport. Much appreciated as always. Stay safe out there, and please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.